Welcome to Wicked Felina. I'm Felina. I'm going to talk to you today about probably the most important subject that anyone can talk about. Because if this is taken away, as it is being taken away, every single thing that's important in this world, every thought, every idea, every action, everything that's necessary, your own plea for help, your plea for peace and sanity, is all tied into freedom of speech. Well, your religion goes into that too. Whichever religion that you want to believe in. Freedom of speech is being taken away from you. And someone decides, an authoritarian body decides what religion you're going to believe in. That hurts everybody. Some religions have different sects. Christianity, Islam, all sorts of, even Judaism, all different sects. Hinduism, all sorts of religions that broke off from Hinduism itself. And let's say one of those religions ruled. Now everyone's Hindu. Or everyone is Christian now. Oh, good. Everyone is Jewish now. Oh, good. Everyone has to be Muslim now. Which sect is going to rule? Which sect? Sunni, Shia, Wahhabi, Salafi. And there's many more. Sufi. Which out of all of them? That's the mystical one. But it's considered a heretical branch. The one that Rumi belonged to. The whirling dervishes that had the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit that we know moves it spins, the Holy Spirit. And it enters them, and the whirling dervishes move in that ecstasy. And Rumi was able to write that beautiful. His writings were so beautiful. And I remember men trying to use those writings on me as if, I said, wait a second, this isn't about lovers, human lovers. This is about Jalaluddin Rumi's love for God, love for Allah. And just like the Christian mystics, Catholic mystics, St. John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, Brother Lawrence, the unknown mystic who wrote The Cloud of Unknowing, Julie of Norwich. It's beautiful writings about, and even Mary and Martha. Mary, the one that sat at Jesus' feet, and Martha tended to the life, took care of Jesus' bodily needs, fed him, cleaned up around him, cleaned the house. Yet Mary just sat at his feet and looked. She looked at the presence of God. She was watching daily at the gates of God, as it says in the Bible. And it says that Mary had the better part. So Rumi's considered heretical because he wrote so much poetry. He wrote so much, these beautiful stanzas. And you're not supposed to add anything to Islam. It's just the Quran, which was revealed during the life of Muhammad. It was not written down. It was written down after the war. And everybody who was left, who knew bits and pieces of the Quran were scribbled down and put back together. And then there was just tons of different Qurans all of a sudden, because none of them got it right. And then Uthman took them all, burned them all, and gave everybody his copy. So whatever he thought was right. And then there's the sayings and doings of the Prophet, the Sunnahs and the Hadiths, which were written about 250 years after the life of Muhammad. And so unless you have either one of these two, anything else, so Rumi's personal experience with the love of God, the Spirit of God entering him and speaking, they weren't teachings, it was wisdom, the wisdom of love. They say the wisdom of God, and that the Bible is filled with beautiful passages of the wisdom of God. That's, sometimes a crazy person on the street, they don't know how to bathe, and they don't know how to shelter themselves, but sometimes you walk by them and then they say something that's a bit of wisdom. Where did that come from? And, it's God speaking through them. Because God speaks through all his creatures, or her creatures. God is neither he nor she, but God permeates everything. If God created everything, God permeates everything. As in the Vedas, the Hindu beliefs, the Vedas, God is not just in everything, God is everything. Just like the drop of water that falls into the ocean and vanishes. Is there a difference between them? There isn't. So, if one religion rules, then you might lose your own. You might lose the sect that you believe in. Then one sect will war against the other sect. The Shia and the Sunni war. And they kill off each other because one considers the other heretics. As Muhammad, blessings and peace, has written, if they're a heretic, they should be killed. If they leave their religion, they should be killed. See? So that would be difficult if we lost our freedom of speech. Because what if, you see, in the case of Islam, Muhammad, he said there's 5 people you're supposed to learn Islam from. 5. And not one of them was Uthman. He's the one who said, everybody give me your Quran, and I'll tell you what's right. And he burned the rest. So there could be a Quran out there, or the true Quran, that we don't have. Like I said, most of it was killed off in the war between the forthrightly guided Caliph and the mother of the faithful, Aisha, warred against each other. And so, since the Quran wasn't written down, 700 people died. So, most of the Quran disappeared. And then one of the surahs was mostly eaten by a sheep, according to Aisha. So a lot of it has been lost. So it's quite possible that one of these sects is right. But each sect can't really tell the other sect which one it really is. It's possible that it's all lost. It's possible that the Sufis are closer because Rumi, even though he's considered heretical, if you reach God by love. A mystic says you reach God by love, because if God is love, you reach God by love. And to draw down God by love. And that way God speaks to you internally. It's a poetic dialogue. It's a dialogue of love, of divine ecstasy. Not sexual. It's not sexual. It's not temporary, and it doesn't drive you crazy. It's divine. It's like those monks and nuns, the ones that can be celibate, that live in monasteries and convents, descalced ones. I almost became a descalced nun. Descalced means you don't wear shoes. You're vegetarian, and you have a garden. And all mystics have gardens, because you can't. St. Teresa of Avila says that you cannot ascend to heaven without having your hands firmly planted in the soil. That's interesting. It's not about escapism or taking drugs. You reach these states of ecstasy, visions of heaven, without drugs, with just deep meditation. And so it's not really off the subject. It's that if we don't have freedom of speech, we lose all of this. This is a wisdom that I know that different sects of Christianity will say, well, that's just crazy Catholic stuff. Well, a lot of Protestants love St. Francis of Assisi, and he was a mystic, except he rejected formal education. He was once wealthy. He went to the Crusades. He got sickened. He came back. He completely transformed his life and took care of lepers and rebuilt churches. And he didn't believe in formal writing education because it can corrupt you, he thought. That's what he believed started the whole wars and hatred and division. If we just lived by love and connected to God, we wouldn't have all this division. But we have division. It's all it is division. Now, we're afraid. We don't know. As far as not only we are afraid to offend someone who may be Muslim, don't want to be called an Islamophobe, don't want to be called a racist, don't want to be called transphobic, xenophobic. We don't know what pronoun to use. And we never thought in our lives we were racist in any way. We never acted that way. But you see, now racism is just the color of your skin. Somebody is simply deemed racist. Now words don't matter. What am I talking about? Free speech. Free speech doesn't matter anymore. Words don't matter. Because they've deemed anyone white as racist. How about that? Unless you yell loud enough and you're filled with so much hate and you yell racism first, then you can get away with possibly not being a racist. And you know that whites are minority in the world. Whites are actually the minority. And if you are born in Africa as an albino, even more of a minority. And, in voodoo, they practice voodoo there, that's considered magical, and they end up chopping pieces off of you, piece by piece, until you're gone. It's not good to be white in Africa either. And in South Africa, where they're officially taking the lands away from the white farmers, like they did in Zimbabwe. Used to be the breadbasket of Africa. Remember Feed the World? Bob Geldof did Don't They Know It's Christmas? Because Africa was starving to death, the cradle of civilization. Cradle of civilization is Mesopotamia, but Africa, where we all began, we were starving to death. And so Zimbabwe was important, and the farms were so important. So they got rid of all the white farmers, and now they're starving to death, and there's diseases. And Zimbabwe actually wants the white farmers to come back because people are starving to death. So there's racism all over the world. And for one to say, well, you can't be racist if you're not white, it's ridiculous. Racism is based in hatred, isn't it? That you stifle someone, you don't allow them to live, be free. That's racism, right? Would that be racism? Well, I think, when someone of the same color owns someone else as a slave, well, it's not racist, but they treat them just as badly. And they're on the lowest rung of the ladder, aren't they? Africa has 6 million slaves. 6 million Black Africans are enslaved by other Black Africans. Can't call it racist, but it's slavery. And there are 43 million slaves in the world today. None owned by whites or Christians or the Western world, because it's illegal here. And all the racists, I believe, should go, people who cry racism should go over there. Free speech, or you want to stifle speech? Well, if you stifle speech, then there's nobody left to tell you the truth, that there are 43 million slaves in the world, non-owned by white people or Christians or the Western world, and the Western world ended slavery and only had it for 300 years, and the rest of the world had it for thousands of years, and it continues to this day. But if you stifle free speech, you will stifle that truth, which nobody's hearing. And as Lauren Southern is trying to tell us about the farmers, white farmers getting killed in South Africa, and their land is going to be taken away. Even the Zulus are being killed. Remember Winnie Mandela? She's known to put tires over the Zulus and put tires around them and then throw gasoline on them and set them on fire. She did that to the Zulus because Marxism, that wonderful Marxism, is taking over South Africa. Now, this is really interesting is because if you have no freedom of speech, then you don't know how bad Marxism is. So if you that's what Marxism does. Communism. Take away freedom of speech. You don't know the truth about how bad that is and how it's kind of destroying the world. And you don't know that Che Guevara hated homosexuals. He killed all of them. But you wear his t-shirt. He raped and murdered mercilessly. And you know that Fidel Castro prisons all the Black people. There's a divide. There's a racial divide between whites and blacks. Huge racism in one of the most racist countries in the entire world. In America, you can complain. Black Lives Matter can have their marches. They can even say fry the police to death. They can say that. They have the freedom of speech to say they want to fry the police like bacon, pigs in a blanket. What do we want? Dead cops. They can say that in the streets of America. If you went down to Cuba, that couldn't happen there. Because they don't like blacks. And what's his name? Colin, I don't know why his last name escapes me. Colin Kaepernick had Fidel Castro on his socks, and he doesn't know that Fidel Castro brothers, the communist regime of Cuba, hates and imprisons Black people. He doesn't know that, and has a Che Guevara t-shirt. In Cuba, they lined people up and killed them in firing squads if you go against it. And yes, my ex-communist revolutionary boyfriend did teach me a lot, because I told him when we talked about the Khmer Rouge. And the Khmer Rouge, he said, well, what's his face? Pol Pot. Well, they had to do what they had to do. Because, he went to school in France, got out, and decided, I had America. You know what he said? Well, because they were westernized. America just westernized. They were thinking like Americans. Capitalism in Cambodia. So they had to be killed. That's very dangerous talk. Very dangerous free speech, isn't it? But they speak it. The socialists are not afraid, and the people who say they want to kill are not afraid to speak, and they're allowed to speak. But we're losing our free speech. People are being interpreted. You know how Hillary got off on her emails? Each email she deleted was a felony. 33,000 felonies, just that alone. Forget about the foundation, just that alone. But Comey said that she didn't intend. She acid wiped, she cleaned them with acid, she acid washed them and destroyed computers and Blackberries. Completely destroyed, intentionally destroyed them. But he said that it wasn't her intention to have a server that was unsecure. She intentionally destroyed them. I don't know what he's talking about. There's your case. There's intention. That proves intent. She intentionally did that. She intentionally put it in her basement. What is it? Another story. But he said that she was innocent because she didn't intend. Well, sometimes we say things and we have no intention, our intention of what I mean or what our heart means. And then we're called racist or xenophobic or homophobic. And it's like, where are you even getting this from? What I said wasn't even racist. It's what they're thinking and it's what they're interpreting. It's what they've intended for you. They have already judged you. And they need to call you that name. So they don't get called that name. They're so afraid of being called all these names and being pegged because they've adopted socialism, they've adopted communism. See how England is completely gone. Socialism brings on communism, okay? They're gone. They're a dictatorship. They're gone, okay? They're gone like Sweden and Germany, and hopefully Italy's going to make a comeback. Hopefully we're not going to lose Italy and all that artwork and all that beauty and all that food. Let's not lose Italy. See, communism is about, they listen to everybody and they have to find out who the traitor is, the one who, because you could say you're a communist, but you might not be really thinking it. You might not be brainwashed. That's why Mao had his 100 flowers. He had people come up and give them their advice he said, I want your advice to make a better country. And that way he could find out by what they said if they were really on his side or not, if they were 100% his thinking. And of course they killed them all. Never mind, he killed 78 million of his own people and 45 million in 4 years. See, it could be that these communists know, these revolutionaries know, these young, they know that it's a bloody carnage. It's like Bill Ayers said, 30 million has to be killed in this country for it to change. And he said that way back in the 60s. And Saul Alinsky. They know that this bloody revolution is going to come. So they have to make sure everyone knows that they are the communist. They are a good communist. They think they're brainwashed. They think correctly. And they call out. That's why they're calling us out racist, Islamophobe, this or that. They're showing that they're good communists. This is in the playbook of communism. This is it. And watch out when it takes over. Because when it does take over, what it does, like what Mao did, his Red Guard, his beloved Red Guard, which was the youth, the young people, he'd go out, just like the Khmer Rouge, they go out, they're young people. They terrorize, they torture, they terrorize the people, they destroy history. What you do is you destroy the history. He dug up the graves, he destroyed artwork, poetry, writings, knowledge. Because it's the ultimate act of narcissism of the dictator. There's a dictator, ultimate act of narcissism. He's the only one. The dictator is the only one you listen to. Like in North Korea, you got the dear leader. It's all they learn about is the dear leader. It's all the kids in school learn about is the dear leader. They hold a picture of him to their chests, the dear leader. History is wiped out. You say, oh, well, let them do this and let them do that, then they'll stop. It's not going to stop until everything's eradicated. And the only thing you know is the only thing the dictator wants you to know. And it's funny because when you first meet a socialist, communist, they'll start telling you about communism, socialism. This is brilliant. Listen to this. This is brilliant. As if you've never heard, and I've heard this, I know exactly what you're saying. I've heard this 1,000 times before. You think you're telling me something new, and you are so blind that this does not work. But at the same time, it's the fear, it's the power in their violence, and the fear in their voice. It's the sound of their voice that yells so loudly, that accuses so quickly. They are so afraid. They've brought this on. They think it's going to bring on some kind of utopia of equality. And they'll be able to speak and riot, but they won't. Only if they riot and say and do the things that the leader says. But see, a time comes when they all have to be killed off because order has to be brought back. You can't have rioting and looting and They want order back in the country. You can't keep doing that. They let them go crazy. And these young people the brains who are not fully formed because the amygdala is very important. Frontal cortex is fully formed when you're an adult. That's why adults are more rational and teenagers are more emotional because the amygdala is bigger. And so teenagers are much more emotional because they live in that part of the brain and their hormones are going crazy. So these communist socialist leaders use the young because the brain doesn't stop growing till you're 26. And you are ruled by your emotional part of your brain and the hormones that are going crazy in your body. They can utilize you. Useful idiots. Who coined that phrase? They call you useful idiots. And then Mao did, Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, all of them. They kill you off because they have to. Because they have to have order. They've put fear into the people. They've taken free speech away. No one will think, do, or say but what the dear leader wants you to. The elderly are killed off. The feeble, the infirmed, the handicapped. Gone. They're a drain on the system. Yet they have middle-aged, brainwashed, healthy of a kind left. And they always take away religion. They always started off with religion. When you have a religion that borders on totalitarianism, that teaches what to think, how to pray, when to pray, what to think, how to mutilate the genitals of your children. As Christopher Hitchens says, it solves all of life's problems. When you have one that's totalitarian one might rule. You might be of one of those sects that is not different sects, but you're not allowed to practice it because only one will rule. Because people who are ushering in socialism and communism are looking towards a sect that will rule by totalitarian regime. This one. Put fear, and you stifle the voices, and then you make them obedient, and you cannot think. And it's only this way. Yes, you could be this type of Christian, or this type of Muslim, or this type of Jew, or this type. No, but there's only one. Only this kind. And then communism. Just like Nazism, there is no religion. See, the dear leader is God. The dear leader, the human, becomes God. And nothing is above the dictator. Nothing is above Nazism. Nothing is above communism. That is your God. Everything is in Nazism. As long as you put Nazism first, you could actually be one of your religions, as long as Nazism was first. But a lot of religious people, including Jehovah's Witnesses, were killed because they put their religion first. They put God first. Had to put Nazi. Communism. Nothing. No religion at all. So, beautiful England, the land of the Magna Carta. Speaker's Corner. It's a wonderful place because you could talk about religion there freely. You can still do it now. Canada. Freedom of speech is gone. Mexico is a very difficult place to live. That's why they're coming here. We cannot lose our freedom of speech. And I'm going to upload part 2 video of someone that I consider beloved to me, an atheist who warned us, but he was a good man. And I suggest you listen to him. One little kiss from Felina. Goodbye, friends.